Today's video is all about sewing the collar on denim jackets. I have a few here to show you. It's going to be a really practical video for you, so keep watching. Hi sewing friends, my name is Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. And if you've noticed, I've mentioned a little phrase here at the beginning. I said from liftingpinsandneedles.com, and even though I've had this website for the last year, I have recently started to tidy it up, organize everything, and it's going to be a new resource for you to find everything that I post on the channel in a more organized way. And lots of the videos will also have a blog post to accompany, and there will also be blog posts that aren't on the channel. So please go and follow me there. The link is down below. And for this video specifically, there is a very detailed blog post that can give you a lot of assistance because I'm going to be mentioning a lot of things here. You can hear them, but if you actually read them as well, you will probably benefit a lot more. So please go follow me there. I'll put the link down below here, liftingpinsandneedles.com. It's quite easy. This video is all about the collar of denim jackets. I know sewing a denim jacket might seem like it's a daunting task, or for someone with a lot of experience sewing, a more advanced project, but I think if you break the project down into chunks, it's totally doable. Over the last year, I have made 5. I have them hanging here. These first 3 here are the Atenas denim jacket from Itch to Stitch patterns. And these 2 over here are the Stacy jean jacket from SKILLSHARE. I've sewn a lot of these collars here. These 2 have more feminine shaping. The Atenas from Itch to Stitch has bust cup sizes that gives you a really good fit. SKILLSHARE doesn't have cup sizes, but it has a lot of waist shaping, and it's just a beautiful fit on the back and everywhere. I really like that. I also have the pattern for the Audrey from Seamwork, but you can also use a boxy style for a more casual setting, and I don't really have like a really casual type denim jacket, and that is why the Audrey is on the back burner. It will happen. I have gone and studied this pattern very well in order to film this video for you, because I'm going to be making comparisons between them in a few aspects that you might think will make the whole sewing technique different, but it actually doesn't. I'll go through the differences first, and I have found 3 main differences. The first, as always, is the seam allowance. Every pattern company and every designer has their own drafting seam allowance, and that can change, you know. So you might find some that use a 5/8 seam allowance for the whole construction of the jacket, including the collar. So you won't be changing your seam allowance throughout the pattern. This is the case for the Audrey from Seamwork. Itch to Stitch has the same approach, the same seam allowance for the whole construction of the garment. That one is 1/2 inch. And then you will find other pattern companies that will differ the seam allowances depending on the area of the construction of the garment. One example is the Stacy jean jacket from SKILLSHARE that I have hanging here. This one has the seam lines drawn on the pattern, and for the main seams it uses 3/8, and for necklines and collar pieces it uses 1/4 inch. Now you might think that is a bit complex, that you would have to be glued to your instructions, but it's really easy to get used to those types of instructions. And actually I find constructing a collar and any curved seam with a smaller seam allowance easier, and it's easier to get the precision you need. The other big difference that you might find is the way the undercollar is drafted. So every single jacket will have 2 layers, of course. One that goes on top, that is the upper collar, and the one that goes here is the undercollar. So this undercollar will be cut in different ways. So for example, this one from Itch to Stitch is one pattern piece, has a center seam, and is cut on the bias. That allows this to fold better because it's on the bias. It has more flexibility. Usually you're working with quite stiff fabrics when you're making a denim jacket. So that is the main difference, that you will have to cut it on the bias, sew a seam, press it, be very careful when you're handling it. The other way the undercollar can be drafted is that it's just one piece cut on the fold. The upper and the undercollar will be both cut on the grain line, and that is the case with the Stacy jean jacket. So the undercollar here is not cut on the bias. There is no center back seam in the undercollar. And now seam work, Audrey, the difference between that jacket is that they just have one collar piece. So you cut the same pattern piece twice. One is the upper collar, one is the undercollar. The Atenas and the Stacy, although the undercollar is cut in a different way, they have the similarity that it's slightly smaller than the upper collar. And that is really good in construction because it will favor the seam here on the side to roll towards the back, so you're not going to really see it that much. I really appreciate it when there is an upper and the undercollar drafted separately. I think it's just a higher quality of drafting than when you just have to cut two and they're both the same. The third difference that you will see with these patterns is all about the facings. So this facing here in the center. So you will see that some patterns have an integrated facing, which means that the front yoke and this pattern piece here are just longer. And that piece is interfaced and just folded under like this one. That is the case with the Atenas jacket and the Audrey from Seam Work. I think this facilitates construction. It does make you not do an extra step. Now, the Stacy from Style Arc has a separate facing piece that is interfaced and is sewn on and then folded under. This facing here, you can see a seam right there. Although it's an extra step and extra seams, I think it just makes this area more stable. So just have a look. That is one of the differences that you will see, but it doesn't really affect the way you're going to construct the collar at all. There are lots of similarities between all these patterns. Lots and lots. One of them being that they all have notches very clearly marked on the neckline and on the collar pieces so that it's easy to put these two together. The upper collar is always the one that is interfaced, not the undercollar. The upper collar is the one visible. When that pattern piece is interfaced, it's really smooth. The undercollar is not interfaced, and that is common between all these patterns. Although sometimes it's not mentioned, the neckline does need to be stay stitched. Even if you're working with a stiff fabric, when you're manipulating and sewing shoulder seams and yokes and doing all that other business with the jacket, you run the risk of stretching out that neckline that is not going to fit well with your collar pieces that you've manipulated less. So sometimes it might not be in the pattern instructions, but stay stitching should be one of the first steps you do before putting any of the seams of the body together. Obviously, all these patterns have two collar pieces, an upper and an under, that are sewn together with different seam allowance, but they are put together and turned right sides out. They will all have bigger seam allowances, usually that need to be graded or trimmed smaller to avoid bulk there in that area. When sewing these together, it's always the undercollar, the one that is sewn onto the neckline, and the upper collar, that seam allowance is folded under and left loose to be sewn at a later stage. There is also in all these patterns an area that you need to snip precisely here so that that seam allowance that you would have seen there can be tucked underneath that area that has been folded under, and then you have this really nice area. There was a snip done very precisely there, and all that bulk is underneath there that you can't see. So I would say what I've mentioned just now is one of the most critical areas of the collar. Not critical, it just needs a bit of precision and a bit of care. All these patterns will have that aspect in the construction. How this was achieved was filmed step by step for you, and I'm sure it will help you in all your future denim jacket endeavors. So let's hop into all that.
Don't you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak. I have tried to give you my soul.
These are the two collar pieces. This is the undercollar, the one that was cut on the bias, and that one does have a back seam. I have sewn that with 1/2 inch seam allowance and pressed that seam open. There is a notch there and a notch there that I've marked with a red friction pen. I hope you can see that. Now the upper collar is one that's just cut on the normal grain line. This is the one that's interfaced, and now it's instructed that you sew a guiding stitch from the bottom there, the shorter piece here. So I've sewn that guide stitch there and then pressed the seam up on the bottom. Now I'm going to put these right sides together, and you're going to see that the upper collar looks shorter. This bottom longer bit, the undercollar, is the one that's going to be sewn onto the jacket first. So what we have to do here is pin that all the way around actually. Now you will find that the undercollar is slightly smaller than the upper collar, and that favors the seam to roll to the back when you're wearing it. So it's supposed to be like that. Trust the process. They are not supposed to be exactly the same. Okay, so I've put just a few pins to hold it together. So basically you start there at the foldy bit, reinforce there, no back tacking, you know. Up, pivot, goes all the way across the collar, pivot, and then stop right there where that foldy bit is. And that's the first thing you do to the collar. After sewing this, you need to grade your seam allowances, turn it right sides out, make sure these points are super crisp, give it a good nice press, and then you can go and sew it onto the jacket. Okay, so here you can see that bit where I folded it in. This is the upper collar, the interfaced one. The under collar is on the bottom. You can see that's 1/2 inch protruding because that's what you need to sew it onto the jacket. So I'm going to start sewing right there. We're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance for the collar pieces. I like to sew, finish, and then start again because I think it gives a reinforced area there and it makes it crisp when you turn it right sides out. That's just how I like doing it. Here is that seam from the under collar. Gotta make sure it stays nice and open. And I'm just going to hand crank for accuracy. There you can see the stitching has gone right to there. I'm going to grade the seam allowances, not that much, but just enough. Now you can see I've graded it there. This is the upper collar. On this other side for the under collar, I'm going to go ahead and trim again even more, just a little bit more. Okay, here you can see on the under collar side, the seam allowance is sort of 1/2 of what I left on the upper collar, and this just reduces bulk. I'm now going to turn these points here. So I've trimmed that corner a little bit more. This is the under collar side there. This is the upper collar. I'm just going to fold these two. Right where that is, I'm just going to fold it, hold it there very firmly, and then just try to flip it through, and I might get a really crisp point there. Okay, so this is the upper collar. This is the part that's going to be seen, and I want to make sure that that point there is nice, and I've done the same. I haven't pressed it or top stitched it yet, but it's looking pretty good. How nice is this collar? So here's the upper collar, the one that's got the 1/2 inch folded up. This is the interfaced one. Under collar is the non-interfaced, the one that has the seam in the middle, and it's being turned right side out and pressed. You can see the under collar protruding. This is what is going to be sewn onto the jacket on the first step. The points are crisp, nice and crisp. And I'm going to do the top stitching on the collar at the very end. I'm just going to worry about putting this onto the jacket right now. Here's the jacket. I haven't done the side seams or anything. And I have got the under collar right sized together to the jacket neckline. Here in the center, where the under collar has a seam, I have matched it to the center of the back neckline of the jacket, and then I've gone ahead and pinned all the way to there. You can see where the pinning reaches up to there, and on the other side, on the jacket pattern, you will find a notch, and that is where the collar should meet. You can see there, it matches the notch right there. And from the fold line inwards, it's 2 centimeter distance, and on the other side it's the same. So the collar is being pinned. You can see the center on this other side as well, and it reaches up to there, And if you look on the other side, there is the notch that the pattern has. So that ensures that the distance from the fold to there is the same on both sides, and you have a really precise collar. Now this needs to be sewn on with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So from there all the way up to there. And you got to be careful not to catch this upper collar that's just dangling. So I would just bring that to one side there and just like put a pin to keep it out of the way. And same as this other area there. Pin it. I'm just going to pin it out of the way. So now just a straight seam at 1/2 inch seam allowance to attach the under collar to the jacket. You can see I've got this collar out of the way there. Collars are the only times I put horizontal pins, and I don't remove them while I sew. I just go carefully over them. So the under collar has been sewn onto the jacket. All the notches match. The notch there with the edge of the collar piece matches that red notch you can see there. This red notch that was on the under collar matches the shoulder seam right there. Perfect. And this other one matches the other shoulder seam. And then that one matches the one on the jacket. So that's all good. Now I'm going to flip this around so you can see the next step. Okay, here we have one of the bands that will have the buttons. It's just opened, it's been pressed in, interfaced there. And you can see that was the notch that the collar had to reach. And now this has to be folded right there where the interfacing is. There is a notch there that matches that, and that has to be folded like that. The upper collar is still fiddling around loose, and you're not supposed to catch it. It's just supposed to hang down there, not into the seam. And then this sort of just surrounds the band. We'll just go around and finish there. So basically another stitch needs to happen now, and that is from there, from where that is, there to the end, with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now it's really important that the upper collar is out of the way, that you've tucked it below that so it doesn't get caught. So we just got to sew that and then flip it right sides out. Now I want to sew right on top of the other seam I have done, and that's why I'm sewing with this sides up, because I can actually see that. So it can get a bit bulky, there's a bit of layers. I can feel the bulk of the under collar right there. I don't want to catch it. I want to go straight on top of that seam. We're looking at the right side of the jacket there. There is the yoke, the pocket flap there on the bust, and this is the one that just came around and folded onto itself in there, and that's where I did that stitch. So I'm just going to flip it right sides out so you know what it looks like. There, that's the under collar right there, and this is the upper collar. On the inside of the jacket, it's super neat. You can see that the upper collar, because it's been folded and pressed before, is flush against this part right there. So that's really cool. Now the same thing needs to happen on the other side. Here we can see one side of the collar there. That's just been pinned in place. That's been pinned in place. This hasn't been sewn on. And on the other side is the same. There's all this flappy bit there. This needs to go inside like that, and then this needs to be sewn on. This needs to be clipped because this is a curved seam, so you need to clip that, grade that, and then that is going to be top stitched on there, and over here too. But right there, we need to do a clip up to the seam, right there, not through it, and then tuck that in. So I'm gonna do that and show you. So here you can see the seam there, uniting the under collar to the jacket. And right where that thing is, right where this facing bit comes folded there, you need to clip in. And this is a bit nerve-wracking because, you know, but let's just clip into there. Right there. This can go up. This is where all the seam is going to go up. And then this, that's already been pressed. I've removed the guiding stitch. We'll cover that and keep it super neat. There. See? Now I go the extra mile when I do this, and I hand baste this on before putting it through the machine because I really want it really precise. So yeah, same on the other side. I have graded that seam allowance, clipped lots of them, and pressed the seam up. Now the upper collar that had already been pressed, I'm just meeting up to that seam there, and I'm just pinning. I like to do this on the ironing board because it's such a extended area. It's easy for me to do that. Once I've got it all pinned, I'm going to baste that by hand, and then I can go ahead and top stitch this collar. I've done my hand basting to hold that in place, and now that the upper collar has been hand basted on, I am at liberty to just top stitch this collar down. Now on these extremes where that upper collar was just dangling loose, you know, because I've hand basted it down really flush against this, there's not going to be any gaping there, and when I sew that there, it's going to be nice and secure. If you remember many months ago when I made my Atenas jean jackets from Itch to Stitch, I have already produced 2 videos for you on that pattern. The first one was a full pattern review. You could see the fit of my muslin, some fitting adjustments, and how to construct the main body of the jacket. Then I made a second video where I dedicated it to the construction of the sleeves and also how I pulled off the little sleeveless number that's right there. So if you take those 2 videos plus what you've just seen here, put them all together, you basically have like a full sew along for this pattern. You can go ahead and make other patterns that are very similar. I've already discussed the differences and the similarities, but actually when it comes time to sew, those differences don't really make that much of a difference in what you have to do. So I really hope this helped you. Let me know what you think. Have you sewn these types of collars? I personally enjoy them. I love them, and hence I've made so many. But I really hope this was useful for you. Go along and check my blog post that accompanies this video. If you love this type of content that is very practical for your sewing, consider subscribing to this channel. Also tapping on the bell so you don't miss out when new videos go live. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon with another sewing video. Bye!